You ever see something so real you could smell it, then blink and it's just gone, no trace, no explanation. Just emptiness where something awful should have been. That's mile 134, and if you see it once, you'll see it again, and again, and again, until one day it's you lying in the wreck. Let me tell you something, and I mean this plain, the road changes a man. You spend long enough out here, miles ticking by like a slow leak in your soul, and you start to understand that not all miles are the same. Some are just pavement, some are silence, and some are waiting for you. I didn't believe that, not really, until I met mile 134. Now, I've been hauling loads up and down these back highways since I was 23. 37 now. I've seen my fair share of drunks in ditches, deer, that explode across your grill like live grenades. And once, outside Shreveport, I saw a guy walk onto the highway and disappear right in front of me. Thought it was the moonlight or the windshield, or maybe the pills I was taking for my back. But what happened at mile 134? That wasn't no trick of the eyes, that was real. Too real. The first time it was just another night run. I was hauling pipe, big, heavy steel things, the kind that feel like you're dragging dead whales behind you. Route 77, one of those narrow, tree-hugging roads that feels more like a scar across the map than a proper highway. It was quiet, cold. My radio was half static, playing some old country tune I didn't recognize. Something about lost love and a long road, like they all are. Then, the fog came in, not mist, not morning dew. I'm talking thick, wet fog that hugged the truck and turned the high beams into blinding orbs. It swallowed the trees, the ditches, the road signs. I slowed to 35, hands tight on the wheel, my coffee going cold in the cup holder. That's when I saw the wreck, out of nowhere, just there. A jackknife semi right off the shoulder. The trailer was twisted, bent into a weird crescent shape. The cab had flipped, lying on its side like a beached animal. Steam hissed from under the hood. The smell of burning oil hit me like a slap. Tapped the brakes, my heart hammering. Then I saw the driver. He was laid out beside the wreck, face up, arms sprawled like a broken doll. His leg was twisted beneath him in a way that screamed wrong, and his head, Jesus. His neck looked like it had folded sideways, like a dandelion stem someone had bent too far. I couldn't look away. Not from the body, not from the slow, flickering fire under the cab, casting that orange light over the grass. It felt like a painting, one of those sad, quiet ones you see in museums. But this wasn't art, this was real. I reached for the CB, clicked to the usual channel. Breaker 19, I got a wreck just past mile. Hang on. I glanced over at the dash. Mile 134. I repeated the message, giving coordinates, requesting an emergency response. Then I waited. Nothing came back, just static. I flipped channels, tried again. Still nothing. The fog pressed against the cab like it wanted in. I started to pull over. Figured maybe I could flag someone down, help if I could, maybe even just mark the scene until first responders got there. I put the truck in reverse, creeping back slowly, eyes fixed on the fire. And then it was gone. Gone. No wreck. No body, no fire, just fog and empty highway. I froze, put the truck in park and sat there trying to process what the hell just happened. I got out, walked the shoulder with my flashlight, heart racing, not a damn thing. No skid marks, no broken glass, no smell of smoke, just cold, wet air and the sound of distant frogs. I didn't sleep when I finally got to the yard. Just sat in the cab for a while, staring through the windshield, feeling like I'd brushed up against something wrong. The worst part? I tried to talk myself out of it, told myself I was tired. Fog can play tricks. Maybe it was real, but maybe I misjudged the location. Maybe emergency services cleaned it up faster than I thought, but you know what settled it for me? 2 weeks later, same route, same fog, same goddamn time on the clock. And 13 a.m., and there it was again, the same wreck. Not just similar, the same. Same crumpled cab, same steam, same goddamn fire, flickering the same way, like it was stuck in a loop. And the driver, still lying there. Only this time, he wasn't still. As I passed his head, his broken backwards head twitched, just a little. Enough for his eyes to find mine. I almost jackknifed. I hit the brakes and skidded for a second before recovering. I didn't stop. Couldn't. I just drove on, hands shaking so bad I could barely shift. I didn't try the CB this time. I didn't want to know if it would still be static. I pulled into the next rest stop and parked under the brightest damn light I could find. My shirt was soaked through. I sat there for almost an hour before I realized my coffee cup was still trembling in my hand. That night, I didn't go home. I slept in the truck, engine running, doors locked. In the morning, I asked around. Didn't. Want to come off crazy, so I was casual. You guys ever notice anything weird around mile 134? Mostly got shrugs, a couple jokes, but one old guy, name was Marvin, I think, chewed sunflower seeds like they were currency. He stopped chewing and looked up at me real slow. You seen it? He asked. I didn't say anything. You'll see it again, he muttered. Happens to all of us if we drive long enough. What is it? I asked. He looked me dead in the eyes. A memory, he said. The road's memory. And it don't forget. Don't forgive neither. I laughed, nervously. Thought maybe he was just pulling my leg. But he didn't laugh. He leaned forward and said, Next time you see it, pay attention. Because one day, it won't be the same wreck anymore. One day that face on the ground, that face will be yours. They say when something haunts you, it ain't always a ghost. Sometimes it's a place. Sometimes it's just a piece of road that ain't right. After that second time, after the body twitched, I knew I wasn't dealing with some hallucination. No way. You can explain away a vision. You can say you were tired or drunk or your mind was slipping, but that look in that man's eye as I passed him, that wasn't in my head. That was personal. I laid low for a few days after that. Didn't run any long hauls. Told dispatch I had flu symptoms. Wasn't exactly a lie. I was sick, just not the kind you take NyQuil for. I was jumpy. Couldn't sleep more than an hour at a time without seeing that damn wreck flash behind my eyelids. The worst part was it was always the same. The fog, the angle of the crash, the flicker of fire underneath the cab. And him, lying there like the road itself spat him out and left him to rot. But it wasn't just the repetition that got to me. It was how familiar it all felt, like déjà. Vu turned up to 11, like I'd seen that man before, not on the road, but maybe in a mirror, maybe in a dream. So I started digging. First, I searched online. Took a couple hours, some keywords. Route 77 accident, mile 134 crash, truck wreck fog, Texas. Not much came up at first. A few old articles about icy roads and local fender benders, nothing major. No recurring accident, no semi-flip. Nothing matching what I saw, but then I got smart. I stopped looking at recent stories, started searching archived news, local papers, 90s and earlier. That's when I found it, February 1997. A semi-hauling steel rebar flipped on mile 134. Poor visibility. Fog rolled in. The driver's name was Randall Coates, age 39, died instantly. Neck broken, cab caught fire and exploded 10 minutes later. Witnesses said they saw him thrown from the cab before it rolled. There was even a photo, and I damn near dropped my phone when I saw his face. Same build, same dark hair, same crooked nose. His eyes in the photo. They were kind, tired. Just a man trying to do his job. But in that ditch? They weren't kind anymore. I tried calling the paper that ran the story, a little local rag out of Jasper, Texas. Asked if they had more information about the crash. The lady on the phone was polite. Until I mentioned mile 134, her tone changed. You. Best leave that alone, she said curt. That stretch of roads claimed more than it should have, but the state don't like talking about it, neither do we. She hung up before I could ask anything else. That should have been my sign to let it go, but I couldn't. Because that wreck, it kept happening. Week after week, any time my route took me past that mile, there it was. Always at 2:13 a.m., like clockwork, like the road knew when I was coming and the scene as it wasn't static anymore. The third time I passed it, Randall's body was a little closer to the shoulder. The boot that had been missing? It was back on his foot. His hand was outstretched like he was reaching for something or someone. The fourth time? His head was turned toward the road before I passed him. I stopped taking that route after that. Switched. Runs. Took jobs farther west. Told my dispatcher I was sick of the east stretch, too many deer, too much roadkill. She didn't argue. Gave me local runs for a while, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That mile. that wreck. And the way the scene kept changing little by little, like it was building up to something. I ran into Harlan again one night at a truck stop near Odessa. You remember him, the old vet from Chapter 1. Guy's got skin like worn leather and a voice that sounds like it's been soaked in whiskey since '82. He was sitting alone drinking burnt coffee like it was medicine. You seen it again? He asked before I even sat down. I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. Let me tell you something, he said, staring into his mug like it held a darker truth. That mile, it's a scar. Something happened there a long time ago. Maybe. Randall's wreck started it. Maybe something else did. But that road remembers, and if it sees you too many times... He trailed off. If what? I asked. He looked at me, dead serious. If it sees you too many times, it starts to change, not just the wreck, you. I didn't know what he meant then, but I felt it. That deep-down kind of fear, the primal kind. The kind that makes animals freeze when they smell smoke before a fire, and something else too, guilt. I don't know why. I didn't kill that man. I didn't cause the wreck. But every time I passed him, I felt it growing. Like my truck had pushed him off the road. Like I'd watched him die 100 times and never once stopped to help. I thought about going back. Not to drive past it, to walk it. To stand on the mile, maybe say something, maybe do something. I don't know what I thought would happen. Closure, redemption, but I never made it that far. Because a week later, I got an anonymous envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a grainy photo. Black and white. It showed the wreck, but it was my truck in the ditch. That photo. I stared at it for hours. It was grainy, like something printed from an old inkjet, the kind that leaves streaks down the paper. But there was no mistaking it. My truck, my rig, laying twisted and crumpled in the ditch, cab smashed in, trailer split like a crushed beer can. Fire licking from under the hood, and there, slumped beside it, was a body. It was face down. But the shape, the build, the damn shirt, a red flannel I wore on cold runs matched mine exactly. No blood, no date. No note, just the picture, and an overwhelming cold that ran through my spine like someone poured ice water down my neck. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the wreck. But it wasn't a replay this time. It was inside the wreck, fire creeping up my legs, the scream of twisted metal closing around me, my lungs full of diesel and smoke, and always 2:13 a.m., blaring on the shattered dashboard clock. I'd jolt awake gasping, shirt stuck to my back with sweat, the faint smell of scorched rubber still in my nose, and the radio. That was the worst part. Even with the engine off, even with the keys out of the ignition, the CB would crackle. Not loud, just a soft hiss, like breath behind static. And once, I swear to God, I heard a voice. Faint. Warped, like it was dragging itself through 100 miles of wire. Don't stop. I ripped the batteries out of the damn thing after that. I tried to ignore it. Tried to keep busy. I took local runs, avoided Route 77 completely. Turned down anything that would get me anywhere near mile 134. Told myself maybe I was just unraveling. Maybe my brain had finally buckled under all the sleepless nights and heavy loads and greasy diner food. But the warnings kept coming. First, the radio. Then the dreams. Then came the phone calls. No number. Just unknown. At first I let them ring. Then I picked up one around 2 a.m. thinking maybe it was dispatch, some emergency. All I heard was that same crackling static. And then a whisper, my own voice, repeating what I'd said over the CB weeks ago. Breaker 19, I got a wreck just past mile 134. Click. I stood there in the kitchen, shaking, the phone still pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. I called Harlan. Didn't care how crazy I sounded. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been waiting for it. You got the photo? Didn't you? I didn't even ask how he knew. Who sent it? I asked. His answer came slow, like he didn't want to say it. The road. I almost laughed, but my voice cracked instead. The road? Are you... It don't need a stamp. To send a message, kid. It don't need an envelope. All it needs is a piece of you. And it's already got that. You've seen the wreck too many times. It's latched on. What the hell does that mean? He went quiet. Then, "It means you're not seeing the crash anymore. You're seeing the future, your future." I didn't want to believe him, but the next night I had a dream, and this time I wasn't watching the crash from the road. I was in the cab. My cab, driving through the fog, radio on, cup of coffee in the holder. And then dead ahead, headlights, blinding, rushing, too fast. There's the scream of brakes, tires skidding, and then impact, metal crunching, my ribs shattering under the wheel flames. And just before I wake up, just before the fire reaches my face, I see myself in the cracked mirror above the dash, eyes open, staring back at me and smiling. I started avoiding sleep altogether after that, ran on caffeine and fear. I looked like hell, bags under my eyes, lost weight. Every time I walked past a reflective surface, I'd flinch, thinking I'd see someone else's face in it. I even tried to see a doctor, told him I was having hallucinations, dreams, maybe PTSD from a close call on the road. He prescribed pills. Didn't help. Only thing that made me feel grounded was driving. Odd, right? You'd think I'd want to stay the hell away from the cab. But behind the wheel I could think. I could distract myself, as long as I stayed off that road, as long as I never passed mile 134 again. But routes have a funny way of changing. Dispatch called me up one morning, cheerful as anything. "Got a rush job. Pays double," she said. "Short run down Route 77 just past Jasper. You'll be back by sunrise." My blood turned to ice. "I don't drive that stretch anymore," I said flatly. "Come on, it's easy money. No way stations. You'll be fine." I told her no. Hung up. But the next morning there was a sticky note on my windshield. One word. Run. No handwriting. Just block letters. And underneath it, a time quite 13 a.m. I didn't want to take the job. I told myself I wouldn't. Swore up and down I was done with that stretch, with that fog, with that mile. But that sticky note, run, 2:13 a.m., stayed in my mind like a splinter under the skin. Not taped to the windshield, not placed under the wiper, stuck inside the cab, on the inside of the windshield. That was the part that made my hands shake. No one had my keys. No one should have been able to get inside. I didn't sleep the next night. Didn't even go inside my apartment. Just sat behind the wheel watching. The dash, lights off, waiting, listening. I kept telling myself it was a threat, some sick prank. Harlan maybe, or one of the drivers screwing with me. But in the back of my mind, I knew better. The road was calling me back, and it wouldn't stop until I answered. The job came through the next morning. No caller ID, just a voicemail. Load ready at 10 p.m., drop by 6 a.m. Route already mapped, don't be late. No name, no company, no address for pickup, just coordinates. The pay? Triple what I usually made for a short run. Too good. Way too good. But that night, I found myself driving to the lot anyway. I don't know why I went. Maybe to face it. Maybe to prove the road didn't own me. Or maybe deep down I'd already given up. Maybe I just needed to see it through. The trailer was hitched and waiting when I got there. Big, dark, unmarked. No paperwork in the manifest box. The freight wasn't labeled, just sealed tight. Cold. To the touch. When I climbed into the cab, the dash clock was already set. 47 a.m. Enough time to reach mile 134 by, well, you guessed it, Conrad, 13 a.m. I didn't punch it into the GPS, didn't need to. I knew the road like it knew me. The night was thick and silent, stars hidden, moon behind clouds. Everything felt off, not just the air or the quiet or the way the tires hummed louder than usual. No, it was like the road had emptied itself for me. No other cars, no trucks, not even animals on the shoulder, like the whole damn world was holding its breath. I passed mile 120, then 125. My hands started to sweat even in the cold. Then came 130. Every instinct in me screamed to stop. Pull over, turn around, burn the rig if I had to. But I kept going. And then mile 134. The fog didn't roll in this time. It slammed in, thick and fast, like someone dropped a curtain around the truck. 1 second I could see the yellow lines on the road. The next I couldn't see past my own headlights. It wasn't just fog, it was wrong. Too dense, too still. It swallowed the sound of the engine, the wheels, the world, and then the CB crackled to life. You're late. It wasn't my voice this time. It was Randall's, the man in the ditch. "The dead trucker. We've been waiting for you." My hands trembled on the wheel. I reached for the CB mic, but before I could say anything, the fog ahead lit up, orange and flickering. The wreck was there, but it wasn't the same. This time, it was my rig smashed, bent around a tree. Trailer broken in two. And there I was, laid out in the ditch, but not still. I was moving, eyes open, mouth agape in a silent scream. As I drove closer, the scene reacted. My body turned, locked eyes with me, and smiled, a slow, awful, knowing smile. Then, it raised one broken, bloodied arm and pointed at me. I slammed on the brakes. The truck fishtailed. I tried to steer, but the fog was too thick, the shoulder too soft. Tires screeched, the trailer swung, and I felt the weight of it all shift. I was going over. I knew I was going over. And then, nothing. I woke up with blood in my mouth, not from an injury, from biting down on my tongue in my sleep. I was in the cab, still parked, dash clock 2:12 a.m., engine humming softly, headlights on, shining into clear, empty road. No fog, no wreck, no fire. I reached for the CB mic with a shaking hand. Before I could speak, it crackled on again. "You've seen it now. One more time, and it's yours." I didn't finish the haul. I don't even remember unhitching the trailer. I just drove until the sun came up and I saw other cars again. I parked at a rest stop and cried for the first time in years. I tried quitting trucking after that. Took a job at a warehouse. Started walking, more, drinking less. I even threw out the CB, but the road doesn't care. The wreck keeps showing up. Not just on mile 134. Sometimes it's in dreams. Sometimes it's in reflections. Once, I saw it in the shadows behind my bathroom mirror. Always at 2:13. Always closer. Always liked driving at night. No traffic, no sun glare, just the low hum of the tires on blacktop and the soft rumble of the engine under my legs. Like the world narrows down to just me and the road, and everything else fades to black. But lately, that quiet doesn't feel like peace anymore. It feels like waiting. At first it was subtle, like something barely out of reach in the corner of your eye, a flash of movement in the cab's reflection when I passed a windowed building, a faint shift in the rear view that made me do a double take, only to find nothing but empty seats. And the air in the cab? It started to feel thicker. Heavy, in the way old basements feel, like something was crowding the oxygen out. I kept telling myself it was stress, that the visions, the fog, the crash, hell, even the photo of my own dead body, were just one long nervous breakdown with chrome trim. But then came the footprints. They showed up after a night run. I hadn't been on Route 77. I avoided it like death itself. I was running north through Denton, stopped at a gas station for coffee and a piss, nothing weird, no fog, no fire. But when I came back to the truck, the passenger door was ajar. Not open, not wide, just cracked, like someone had climbed in or out. Inside, the floor mat had muddy prints. Bare feet, not boot tracks, not sneakers, bare. As if someone stepped out of a lake and into my cab. I slammed the door and drove the next hour with the dome light on and the radio off. Didn't even turn the engine off at my next stop. Didn't sleep. Just stared at that seat, daring it to move. The real change came after that night. It wasn't just shadows or whispers anymore. It was presence. I'd be driving, hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on the dark ahead. And I'd feel a weight shift beside me, just the tiniest nudge of the springs, like someone crossing their legs, adjusting their posture. I could feel it. Feel the heat. No, the cold of someone sitting just inches away. Sometimes out of habit, I'd speak. "Long night," I muttered once. The air beside me changed. The silence turned thick, like a response, was forming but never came. I didn't speak again for days, and then, of course, came the dreams, only they didn't feel like dreams anymore. In them, I was always back in the cab, driving the same stretch of highway, same fog creeping up, same fire licking at the edges of my vision. But it wasn't me behind the wheel anymore. It was him, Randall, his dead hands on the wheel, neck bent sideways like it was barely hanging. On, and me, I was in the passenger seat, strapped in, unable to move, unable to scream. He'd drive slow and steady until we reached the wreck, my wreck, and he'd whisper in a voice like gravel and fire, "Almost home." I woke up from one of those dreams with my hands burned. Not bad, just red, raw, like I'd grabbed something hot. The seat beside me. It was warm, like someone had just stood up from it. I stopped sleeping in the truck. Didn't matter. The dreams came anyway. Worse, I started hearing things outside the dreams. One night I was parked outside a diner, halfway through a lukewarm burger, and the CB crackled, despite being unplugged, dismantled, and buried in the back under a pile of old chains and blankets. "You're not alone anymore." That voice wasn't mine, wasn't Randall's either. It was me, but wrong, like a recording of me played backwards and underwater. I opened the cab door and left it wide for an hour, just to let whatever it was know it didn't scare me. I was lying, of course. I was scared out of my mind. Then came the photo. I found it tucked into the crease of the seatbelt on the passenger side, folded in half, black and white, printed on that waxy paper like you see in old funeral books. It was me standing next to my truck. Only I didn't remember the moment, didn't remember smiling like that, didn't remember wearing that shirt. But the worst part, inside the cab window, clear as day, someone was sitting in the passenger seat. The face was blurred, but you could tell he was staring at the camera, right at me. I thought maybe Harlan would know what to do. He always did, right? He was the guy who knew the road's secrets, who talked like he'd seen the devil change a tire at a truck stop, and still finished his eggs afterward. But he didn't answer. I drove to his usual diner stop. Place was empty, the waitress told me. He hadn't been in all week, said he left his crossword half-finished and never came back. When I got back to my rig, there was a hat on the passenger seat. His hat, torn, sun-faded, sweat-stained around the band, just sitting there like someone left it behind before walking into the fog. I sat behind the wheel that night, engine off, dome light on, staring at that seat. I didn't talk, didn't blink, just watched. Around midnight I blinked and suddenly he was there. Randall, neck bent, blood crusted under his ear. Pale skin stretched over his knuckles where his hands rested gently in his lap. He didn't speak, didn't move, just watched the road ahead, like he was waiting for something. No, the next thing. And somehow I knew. It wasn't my truck anymore. It was the road's and that seat. It belonged to whoever the road hadn't finished with yet. I didn't know what I was expecting when I started driving again that night. But I sure as hell wasn't expecting this. I hadn't been on the road in a week. Thought I could make it. Out, make a new life for myself, leave the rig behind, leave mile 134 behind. But that road, it wasn't through with me. So I should have known. It was just a matter of time before I'd have to face the one thing I'd been trying to outrun. Mile 134. It was like the road knew my thoughts, pulling me toward it, even when I tried to turn away. There was no map, no detour, just the black asphalt stretching out under the moonless sky, drawing me back like it always did. I stopped at the edge of the highway just before I hit the curve that leads to mile 134. I sat there, watching the headlights reflect off the fog that had started creeping in. The radio was off. The world was silent, but that silence, and it felt too loud, too thick. It wasn't just the fog rolling in, it was waiting for me to move. I'd heard stories before, drivers who got lost, took wrong turns, saw strange things on the road. But I didn't believe in that kind of stuff. I thought it was just tired minds playing tricks, but now I knew better. Now it was my turn. I could see the wreck ahead before I even reached the mile marker. I didn't need to check the clock. I knew what time it was. 13 a.m. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't asking for it. But there it was. Phew, wreck. My wreck. The same twisted metal, the same fire burning beneath the cab, the same scent of gasoline, rubber, and death. But something was different this time. It wasn't just the truck. This time, I was standing there, my own body, twisted and mangled like I'd been torn apart. I couldn't see my face, but I could feel it. That awful gnawing sensation of being watched by myself. And then in the corner of my eye, something moved. A shadow, a figure, standing just outside the firelight. I knew who it was. It was the man in the passenger seat. but not in the way I expected. When I reached the wreck, the fog thickened. It wasn't just mist now. It was a suffocating, choking cloud that pressed in on all sides, drowning out the world. The light from the truck barely cut through it, and that figure, Randall, he was no longer a shadow. He was there in the flesh, standing beside my broken body. His neck was twisted at an impossible angle, and his arms hung limp at his sides. But his eyes, those eyes, they were wide open, and they were locked on me. Not as if he was looking at me, but as if he was waiting for me to step closer, for me to make the choice, the same choice. For a long time I just stood there, couldn't move, couldn't speak. The weight of the fog, of the darkness, of what was happening, it was too much. I felt like I was drowning. That's when the voice came, not from Randall, not from the air, not from the radio, from inside my head. You can't run anymore, you never could. It was my own voice, but it wasn't. It sounded like it was coming from outside me, like I was hearing my own thoughts echoing back at me. It was the same voice that spoke through the CB, the same voice that whispered to me in the middle of the night. I turned slowly to face it. There, standing at the edge of the wreckage, was myself, but it wasn't me. Not really. It looked like me, it sounded like me, but its face was pale, almost ghostly, eyes too wide, too empty. It grinned at me, and then it spoke again. You never learned, did you? This was always your fate. This was always your mile. I wanted to run, I wanted to scream, but the weight of it all, the reality of it, I was paralyzed. The figure of myself stepped forward. Every step was slow, deliberate, but its feet never seemed to touch the ground. It was gliding, floating. Couldn't breathe. The air was suffocating me, and then I felt it. The seat beside me was filled. I didn't turn around to look. I didn't have to. I could feel it. The pressure, the presence. Something, or someone, had climbed into the passenger seat. The figure of myself stood beside me now, close enough that I could hear its breath, cold and shallow. It's time to face it. I don't know what happened next. Maybe it was the crash. Maybe it was the way the fog swallowed us whole, taking everything in its path. I remember hearing the sound of the truck's engine roaring to life, the tires screeching as if someone else had taken control of the wheel. I could see the ditch. The same ditch I'd seen so many times before, but this time I wasn't just watching it, I was in it. The final thing I remember was feeling the warmth of the passenger seat. That seat, the one that used to be empty. When I woke up, the sun was rising. My truck was parked at the edge of mile 134. The wreck was gone. The fog had cleared. The road was just a road again. But I wasn't alone anymore. I sat behind the wheel, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the horizon, and, beside me, the passenger seat was empty. But I knew that it would never be empty again.